So you want to do some real-time inverse kinematics, making your character grab onto certain objects in the world dynamically, just like this. You can see that we're using a line trace to figure out where it should grab at, and then as long as it's close enough, it's going to try to grab at it. I have my collision sphere to trigger this on and off, so it will be a little bit too big. And obviously you do want to have some limits to it, but the basic idea here we're going to go over to how to set this up to use control rig to dynamically add in any sort of constraint. We're going to be obviously doing this with inverse kinematics to do whatever you want to do with it. So we're here in an empty project. The final project with all the IK stuff included will be in the description for YouTube members and patrons as always. But let's get started. We're going to do this with the third-person character. So let's open up that third-person character real quick, because I want to find the skeleton mesh that we're going to be working with here, the Quinn symbol. I'll right-click on that, and then I will create a new control rig. I will give this a name like Quinn Simple, and instead of control rig, we'll call this RTIK for real-time inverse kinematics. And the control rig side of this is going to be fairly simple. I'm hoping that you've done a little bit with control rig before, setting up like IK for animation rigs, that kind of stuff. I have some videos on my channel for that if you are curious. We're going to go through this relatively quickly, because what we're going to do is we're just going to set up a basic IK. Doing this with basic IK is actually the easiest way to do it. You might be used to using things like two-bone IK, but the issue there is that it uses a direct reference to a controller. And what we want is a effector transform input, because we want to take in a transform from our world location and put that into here. And if we are using a controller directly, that gets a little bit more iffy. This just makes it a lot more simple to deal with. So we set up our IK. Item A is going to be the top of our chain, so that will be our upper arm in this case. Item B will be the end of our chain. In this case, that's going to be our lower arm. We only have 2 bones in the arm. And then you can set the effector item if you want to. We're only going to do stuff with location in this case. So that's not actually really going to do anything, but the node really likes it when you do put it in there, otherwise it doesn't work. And you can immediately see that we have our hand snapping toward 0, 0, 0, because our effector translation is set to 0, 0, 0. So if we set this to something like 200, you can see the arm is now following it with inverse kinematics already. You might already see where this is going. We're just going to set this translation to be a variable. So just pull off of it, promote it to a variable, and then in my blueprint here, we're going to give this a proper name, left arm IK target, something like that. And quite importantly, this is still within local space for this mesh. It's called global space. You might think that's the same as world space. It's not. Global space is the space for this mesh itself, local to that mesh. We want this input that we give it to be taken from world space and converted into its global space. So the way we do that is using just the from world node. That takes in a vector. That's going to be world space, and then just translates it to whatever that corresponding location would be within the global space of this rig. All you need to know is take it from world, translate it into rig. And that's really all we need to do for this. Obviously, you can set a lot of other stuff, like the weight. If we set the weight here to 0, it's going to be none. Set the weight to 1, it's going to be, well, 1. You can make this into a variable as well. You can enable stretch if you want to. You can do all this kind of stuff. You can add in a pull vector. We're not going to go through all of that. I just want to show you the basic setup of how to use control rigs to dynamically influence your skeletons. So let's compile that, because that's all that we're going to need to do in here. Again, it's really actually kind of straightforward. Then we're going to find the animation blueprint for this, which is just the animation class. Find that and open it up, because we're going to need to add in our control rig into the animation graph here. Open up the animation graph, you can see it already has a control rig thing here for the feet. So as long as it's not falling, its feet are being snapped to the ground by the control rig's IK. It's doing all the tracing and stuff inside of the control rig. We're going to do something similar for the arm here. So add in a control rig node, and then we set this to use our control rig. So control rig class, we're going to set that to our, what do we call it? Like RTIK. There's no input here that we can see yet, right? And that's because we need to set this left arm IK variable to being instance editable. And now if we come back here, we can see in the input, left arm IK, we can set that to a pin, and now we get that as an input pin. We have the same thing going on here with the alpha. If we compile that now, by the way, you see that it does the IK. The alpha here is also a blend between using the control rig and not using the control rig. So if we set this to 0, we also just ignore this control rig entirely. For the purpose of what we're going to be doing here today, we can set this alpha input type from float to a bool. So this is just a whether or not it is on or off entirely. It's a little bit easier to work with. You can also set this to being animation curve based. So if you want this IK to like gradually blend in and out throughout an animation, for instance, a grabbing animation of grabbing an item, you can do that through an animation curve, which is actually quite neat. That way you just make a generalized grabbing animation, and through the motion of your character grabbing the item, you're blending into the IK. And then once it's grabbed it and it takes its arm back out, you're blending back out of the IK. Again, not what we're going to be doing here today. We're just going to do this on a enable-disable basis. So we're going to want to drive these with variables, of course. So let's go back into the event graph real quick, and we're going to make 2 variables for this. And that is use IK for a boolean, and then also IK location, and that's going to be then obviously a vector. In our update animation, we're going to be setting those effectively every frame. So just drag these in as setting nodes, and we'll drive how we're going to set those based on our character blueprint in a moment. Just going to add these in here right now, back into the animation graph, and now that we have these variables, we just hook those up into our control rig inputs, and you'll see that the default value for the bool is false, so it doesn't have the IK anymore. Nice. Back to the event graph, the way that we're going to be setting these is from our third-person character, obviously. So I already had that open here because I had the mesh and the animation blueprint found through here. We're going to go into the event graph here, and I'm just going to make the variables here as well. So use IK and IK target. Set that to be a vector for the last one. And you can make functions here to drive whatever you want to do, whatever location you want to do this toward. We're going to do the same thing that I did at the beginning of the video for the showcase. I'm just going to make a cube and make the character reach out toward that cube. So the cube is actually going to be the thing driving these values in our example here. From this point onward, it is very dependent on what your game requires, obviously. But for this to work, we go in here and we cast to character, which is just the normal C++ character class. We're actually going to replace that with a cast to our third person character. And before anybody comes at me for casting to a other class, this animation instance is owned by the third person character to begin with. So whenever this animation instance exists to begin with, the third person character will be in memory. So casting is not a problem here. We also want the character reference that we have here to be the third person character. If you're wondering a little bit more about casting, I do have a video about why it sometimes is entirely okay to cast and what the actual issues are with casting that people tend to misunderstand. Still though, doing it on initialize instead of doing it on updates does save a little bit of unnecessary code execution, so do that. But it's not actually a problem here. Now that we have our character as a reference to our actual third person character class, we can get the use IK and get the IK target, and set those 2 values for those variables on the animation blueprint here as well. So now all we need to do is write some code to set these variables to whatever they need to be set to. And we're going to do that again on a entirely separate actor here. So we'll make an actor, BP IK targets. And instead of making it a cube, I think let's just make it a sphere for this, because why not, right? And then we'll add a collider to it as well, which will also be a sphere collision. And then just make that a little bit bigger so that when we enter this, we try to reach out toward the sphere. On actor begin overlap, we check if the other actor is a cast to third person character again. For this one, it might be better in a full game for scalability reasons to make this an interface. We're not going to bother with that right here. Again, it's not that costly, but it's just from a architecture perspective, doing a cast here, not ideal maybe. Setting up an interface for this, slightly more smooth. We're just going to do this. So when we begin overlap, what we do is we set use IK to being true. And then for our purposes here, is I'm also going to promote this to a variable. so that we can use this to then also set the target location in a moment. When we end overlap, actor event end overlap, we kind of just do the same thing. We check whether or not this is a third-person character, and we cast to it because we're going to be setting the IK to being false. And then we also set this variable to being a empty value again, because in the event tick, I'm just going to do like a line trace only if our third-person character is valid. So we drag that in, convert it to a validated get, and only if this is valid will we do the line trace. So line trace by channel. We start at the get actor location for, well, obviously our player. And then we're going to be tracing to the get actor location for, well, this target, so this sphere. We don't want to ignore self because it's the sphere itself that's doing the line trace, and we want to be hitting the sphere. So we don't want to be ignoring itself. What we do want to ignore is the player. So in actors to ignore, we're going to make an array, and we're just going to add the player to that. Otherwise, the line trace is instantly going to hit the player, and that's, well, not going to work too well, is it? So then, in the out hits, we get out a location, and we can just use that to set our IK target location with. So set IK target location to our out hit result. My cursor is a little weird today. And we set that, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So now, if we put this IK target into the world and we walk up to it, it should more or less function the same way it did in the demo at the beginning of the video. So yeah, my character is now grabbing out toward that, even if we like look away from it. The IK is reaching out to the position that the line trace is making it reach out to. And when I leave this again, it snaps back to not using IK. So we now have dynamic IK. Obviously, again, you might want to like set some limits to to all this because it does create potential things where it like clips through the body like this. Because it will always just try to get that IK location there, even if it means clipping like through itself. So maybe once you do this, very easy way to do this is to just clamp this between a minimum and a maximum. And the minimum here could be, you'd need to like play around a little with these values, but that would probably be the easiest way to limit what we do. So the limit here would be, I don't know, maybe even like set this to be a little bit higher, like 100. And then the X limit would maybe be also like 100. Well, maybe that's a little much, like 10, 20. 20 seems pretty good. And then the Y, the limit could probably be like minus 20. You can just set this value as a testing value to be like minus 500 to see. This is now how far it will at maximum reach behind it. The maximum we can set to whatever we want as well. So the maximum for the X, it doesn't really matter. So you can just set this to like 1,000 because it will just reach out and not actually hit anything. The maximum for the Y, that's the forward and backward, obviously. So that also, it doesn't really matter. It's mostly about the minimums in this case. So you can set all of these just to like 1,000. Because if we set all of these to like 1,000, right? What will end up happening is it's just going to be like reaching out into a position that is not problematic in any way, shape, or form. And if you really want to be like fancy about it, you also can drive obviously the IK pull in any way that you want, so that it doesn't like clip through its body when it's just like over here. But that becomes a lot more complicated to do through code instead of animation, and for the most part, likely quite unnecessary. So right here you can see that it stops still in a fairly unnatural position, but it's like no longer clipping through my body. So there's a little bit of playing around with what you specifically find to be acceptable as far as how things look and stuff. You can make it as simple or as complicated as you want from here. But that is the basic idea of driving real-time deformation to your skeletons with control rig. We're doing this with IK, but you can also like do this with other stuff like spring interpolation, with like spline IK. The sky is truly the limit. Do be aware though that for the most part, if you are setting transforms, it's going to be overriding anything within existing. And so this is not necessarily an additive process most of the time. It's a matter of replacing. Making things additive is possible just a bit more of a headache. And a very big thank you to all my Patreons. You can see them on screen right now. If you want to help support the channel or get any of the project files in any of my tutorials, there's a link down below to the Patreon page to support me, or alternatively as a YouTube member. And a huge thank you to my Cave Big Brain tier supporters, which care more for coding than impulse control: Earl, Monserville Urno, my Cave Student tier supporters, Oiku, and my Cave Digger tier supporters, Mauricio Farias.